Well, Cincinnati, here we are, thinking we would be celebrating a first round victory over the Columbus Crew. And yet FC Cincinnati decided to rest an extra player and only go with 10 this last game, and just hand Columbus a game. They wanted to win in front of their home fans, I think is what it was. And so we've got another game to look forward to in the Hell is Real playoff matchup. Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk. It's episode 444, and we've got more to come after this next playoff match. And we're looking forward to hopefully, fingers crossed, definitely a win this weekend at TQL over the Columbus Crew. My name is Brian, hosting the show tonight here as always, with Coach. Coach, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I believe, Brian, that the strongest steel is forged in the dumpster of a fire, or in the fire of a dumpster. So FC Cincinnati is just going to be stronger for that total crap show we got to witness the other night.
Yeah. I mean, let's hope so. And Nick's back with us tonight. Nick Morgan, how are you, man?
Doing good. I don't have anything as cool as what Coach just said. So I'm just going to say here's to getting better vibes on Saturday.
Better vibes on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Before we get too far into our show, we want to thank our sponsor, Apollo Home. Apollo wants to remind you that during this weird in-between season, if it's not summer, but it still kind of feels like it, now's the perfect time to get your HVAC system checked out before the cold winter weather is here. We're bringing back the $29 coupon for CST listeners for your preseason furnace tune-up. And as always, keep them in mind for any electrical plumbing need. Give them a call, send them a text, or schedule online at apollohome.com. Gentlemen, we're going to talk a lot about that game because there's a lot to talk about in that game that we witnessed last night. And I wonder how much of it plays in to the fact that, this gloom and doom that we feel that the Bengals lost in horrific fashion just earlier. So the city of Cincinnati was going into this game not feeling good about themselves, and then taking a shellacking in Columbus was pretty crazy. So a lot to talk about, and a lot of best, maybe a lot of worst we could talk about tonight. But we're going to start with our best and worst. And Nick, I'm going to let you kick us off.
God, this was the hardest best I've ever had to come up with on this one. For best, I'm going to go getting Luca Orjano and Obi minutes towards the end of the game. Obviously, I know they were held out. There's a lot of minutes restrictions and stuff going on since they're both coming back from injury. Obi still looks a little bit off from, the injury that cost him most of the year. But I'm hoping that getting the minutes at the end of this game, getting him some game action, is a sign that maybe they'll be full send for Saturday. Because as good as Samuel Gidi's been, I would love to see Obi back in the starting lineup. And I do think you need Luca there on the wing as well. And then for worst, God, I don't know. Just take your pick on this one, guys. I'm just going to say momentum, because let's face it, the Crew were dead in the water to end the season. We heard it, Taylor Twellman say it 18,000 times in the broadcast, only 4 wins in the last 16 games. And it just felt like this game might have woken the Crew up. And yes, it was a team scoring 4 goals, 2 with the man up, actually 3 with the man up. Some flukiness in there. Maybe it's an outlier, but I think you gave the Crew some belief and some energy and some juice headed into this fateful game 3, when you had a chance to really just, take your arch rival and rip their heart out at home, in front of the arch rival's home crowd. So yeah, I don't like what this game might do for the Crew's momentum.
Yeah, no, that's good. The way you frame that, I think, is really good and solid, and giving a team some air when you didn't need to. It could have a big impact on this next match. But I think Cincinnati will make some adjustments. They'll be in front of their home crowd. They'll have the energy on their side. So we'll see what happens. We do have some best and worst in the chat, and I'll share a few here before Coach jumps in, because SJ Pace is on board with you, Nick, that pretty much the whole match, as far as the worst and the best, I guess the bus ride and pregame with fellow fans on the way up there to the game. So how about that for the fans? We've got Jay Yates saying FCC getting a free lesson in how to play when a team is up a man, because we don't know how to do that. And then we're seeing the positives that come from youthful crew players, but realizing FCC either doesn't have that talent or refuses to utilize it. Yeah, talked about playing the kids or not playing the kids all year. So good shout there. If you got other best and worst, go ahead and drop those in the chat. We'll get to some of those as we continue on. Coach.
Yeah, so my best, it was an easy one for me because it's simply, since we saw Guido Gonzalez Jr. in this match, that means for sure we will not see him in the next match. So that is absolutely the best, because SEC did not lose this match because of Guido, but he is a referee who loves to fall prey to the drama of the moment. And Crew are a team that led by Diego Rossi, to hold their faces like they've been killed, to roll around on the ground. Even the red card, you see Herrera go down, gets up and screams like, look, that was a red, I was about to score, screams. And then after Guido comes over and shows the red card, then he lays down on the ground and starts holding his leg and rolling around like, bro, you already got him a red card. Why are you acting even more? But Guido loves that drama, and I'm so glad that Crew will have to deal with some other official, even though there are other officials out there that love the drama too. So, but at least it won't be Guido.
If you had an official to pick in this match, who would you go with?
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. There's Drew Fisher probably might be
I'd
the
say
guy.
Drew Fisher.
The Canadian.
He seems, yeah,
my favorite Canuck. I say that he'll probably be on the match, and he'll probably give Evander a yellow card off of the opening whistle for looking at him funny, which brings me to my worst. It is Evander being on yellow card watch because he got a yellow card in both of the first two matches, which means this next match he's going to have to be careful, because if FCC win but Evander picks up a yellow, he will be suspended for the next match, and having to play with that burden makes things a lot tougher for you, because every challenge you go into, that's in the back of your head.
Yeah. We've got another one just came in here from Matthew. Best, the fact that there's a third game in the series and it's not over yet. And bonus is that Coach is on the show. How about that? Shout out for Coach. And then worst, that his Facebook feed is full of Crew media. Nobody wants that these days. Because my worst, I'll start with my best. My worst last week was the fact that FC Cincinnati could have won away from home in front of the Crew fans, like instead of celebrating with their own fans. My best is the potential that Cincinnati could win this series in front of their home fans. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of bests I can take from that other than looking forward to the next match at home in front of TQL Stadium, in front of all the fans. And my worst really is I didn't feel like there were any adjustments that were made that made any real significant impact in the game, as far as moving the ball forward, moving the ball through the middle, playing the ball over the top. Like even in the first 35 minutes that Cincinnati played with a full 11, it didn't seem like, you got to weather the storm at first, right? You're on the road, you're getting pressed. That's normal. You got to weather that storm. And we didn't get much past that. But even beyond that, I didn't see a whole lot of adjustments being made other than let Columbus keep pressing and we'll try our best to get out of it. And you may disagree. There may have been some moments there, but man, I didn't see anything that really made a difference. And then at halftime, the pool, game, we're down, we're conceding 2-0, right? We've got, we've got 10 men on the field instead of 11, and we pull an attacking player to put in a defensive player. Like, let's just keep them out of the net. Like, we're already down 2. Are we just going to try and keep them at 2, or do we want to attack and go forward and try and get something out of this game? And so felt like we conceded a little bit too early in even some of those adjustments. So that's my take. That's my worst of the night, is just the adjustments that were or were not made that made any difference. So let's get into the match here a little bit. But as we transition, I want to start with an email we received at feedback@Cincinnati Soccer Talk, because we do love when those emails come through and we do want to share those when fans have questions. And so there was one that came in that I think reflects a lot of what we've seen from the fan base of FC Cincinnati. And we can talk about that tonight as the show goes on. The email just says, what's going on? Why did we completely collapse? We're giving all the pundits all the reason to be against us and give the love to Columbus again. We looked like clowns. We couldn't even keep the ball out of our back third. Evander looked hopeless. They locked down Echenique. And what was Brenner doing ducking a free kick? Is this showing the real character of our team? I don't believe all the underlying numbers hype because we kept winning and got second place for the Shield. But did we get exposed or did we just have a bad game? I think it ends on I think pretty logical, like reasonable note. Like, was this a collapse or was it just one bad game? Like, I think we come around, and I think the fan base will come around, hopefully, after tonight's show as we talk about this. But how do you respond to that? The two of you, like, as you hear that, does it reflect what you've heard from fans, or is this a one-off that, you know, a really small select group of fans are feeling this down and out?
I mean, it certainly reflects what I hear from fans. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. I mean, it's one game. At the end of the day, that's all it is. And yes, it's in the playoffs. Yes, it's against the Crew. But at the end of the day, it's one game in which you played with 10 men for like 60% of it. And yeah, there were some underlying problems in that 35 minutes before the Kubo red card that I'm sure we'll dive into. But it just feels like all the talk about, you know, oh, Pat Noonan's, you know, is he on the hot seat? Is, you know, do we need to tear it down? Or, you know, is Evander overrated? Blah, 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 blah. Like all of this talk coming out from a game like this, it's just, I just feel like, what are we doing here? You know, and it's like, obviously, I think there's a different discussion if they look bad again at home, but I don't think that you can close the book on this season from this one performance, if that makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah,
Coach?
I think that the question, so as so often these things are, the answer to the question about whether FCC got exposed or had a bad game is both, because they did have a bad game. Clearly it was a bad game, right? Yeah. And what it did is it exposed a couple things. One, this depth that we've been so proud of for much of the year has really gotten thin over the course of the end of the season. When you have guys like Lucas Engel not being able to start, when you have Nick Haglund not even in the 18, you know, like you're starting to all of a sudden chop and change these pieces that were already maybe backup pieces back there. So that got exposed. And then the other thing that got exposed is what Brian was talking about, where this team, you know, even down a man, didn't generate anything, not even like a hopeful, they took a shot from midfield, Luke Orishano or something, you know, like that. And what it exposes is that SC Cincinnati is built to get a 1-goal lead and then squeeze the life out of the game so much to where if they get a 2-goal lead, they're not comfortable with it, right? Yeah. They're not built to come back. And so you can say that, well, that's a problem with the front office. You could say that's a problem with Noonan and his tactics, whatever you want. But the fact of the matter is they've been pretty successful being built that way. But if you experience adversity, like going down 2 goals and being down a man, you're not coming back from that if this is the way you're built.
But here's the thing, and I agree with everything you said, but Columbus scored 4 goals in this game. Are we now saying, yes, Columbus's offense is dangerous? They were terrible to end the year. Like, are we taking this one game and saying, oh, you know, the Columbus offense is back? Like, that's kind of my thing is I feel like this was a very bad game, but I feel like some of the bigger picture stuff, we're not looking at the full context.
I think that's a good take. Is we see it, you know, one-sided from the perspective of how FC Cincinnati played, and you look at Columbus putting 4 goals in, and we'll talk about those goals here in a few minutes. That were they really well drawn out plays, that scored the goals, or were they fluke defensive things and, a player ducking out of a way on a free kick? Like we'll get into that. I'll save that talk, but I do think that's good to look at it and go, okay, Columbus came through big time in one match, right? How many times has a team scored 4 goals in a game and repeated that the next game? It happens so rarely, at least in MLS. It doesn't happen all that often. And so Columbus played great. Cincinnati played poorly. And again, we'll talk about some of the plays here and there. One of the things that's coming up several times here in the chat is the inconsistency of FC Cincinnati. So Jose is here, says, my concern, we've seen these up and downs from this team the entire year. Go back to my favorite word, inconsistency. And Jay Yates talks about a lot of inconsistency down the stretch. Could have won the Shield, but losing games that we should have won, and letting things slip away here in the last month or two. So we do talk about that inconsistency a lot. But to your point, Coach, we're consistently a good team overall, consistently a team that's winning games, albeit 1 goal wins. We're a team that's at the top consistently right now. And so you want to talk about inconsistency. Well, we got that out of the way in Columbus, right? Let's hope so, right? Like inconsistent, bad, consistent, good. We're coming back home and playing another match. And so we've got time to recover and to rebound. So I want to get into the game more specifically here. As I watched the game, and again, it may go back to my doom and gloom feelings after the Bengals game, but I didn't see anything really good from the kickoff. Like it felt like to me and most everybody else, it sounds like that there were issues from the opening whistle as Columbus was pressing. If Cincinnati had generated anything after 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I might have felt a little bit differently before Kubo went out. But they were pressed, struggled to get the ball forward. Then we lost a man, and then the floodgates opened, it seemed. Did you see things differently? Did you see any positives in those first 30, 35 minutes, Coach?
Yeah, there were a few moments of positivity in my mind. I thought FC Cincinnati's press was actually working pretty well. They won the ball back a couple of times that had they gone forward quickly, they could have generated some decent opportunities, but they got stuck in that thing that often visiting teams, playing teams like Columbus that want the ball, face, which is the other opponent has 60% of the ball. Even when you win the ball up back on the press, your tendency is to step on it and try to keep it. Like, oh, we need to rest. We need to have the ball a bit, as opposed to go punish them, right? Because you don't want to just turn it back over again. So they were stuck in this place where there was a moment in the 6th minute where Columbus had the ball basically for all 6 of those minutes, it felt like. Brenner won the ball back on the press, and he has a chance to pop it over into Ender, who is the furthest forward guy at that point. And Ender, he's fast. He's in behind Arvston, in behind Amundsen. It would have been him versus Zawadzki. And instead, Brenner steps on it and cuts it back and then does a little pirouette and then gives it to Vander, who then takes like 18 touches to let everybody fall back into place. And it was built to let's have a bit of the ball. Let's slow things down. And that's what I mean when I say this team isn't built to come back from deficits. Not they don't have the personnel to do it. Not that they don't have the talent. It's their tendency is always to slow it down, keep the ball, play within ourselves, not take chances, not make mistakes. And is that coaching? A little bit. Is that the players? A little bit. Is that the captains? A little bit. I think it's all of these things play into this culture of not wanting to make that mistake. If Brenner wins that ball back and tries to put Ender in and turns it over, then his teammates are looking at him like, come on, man, keep the ball. We've been chasing it for 5 minutes. Can you just step on it? Right now, if he puts Ender in and Ender goes and scores, the whole game is different. So yes, there were moments, but there was a real lack of decisiveness going forward. And that's where I say, again, this whole thing, did they get exposed or did they have a bad game? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think you were responding to this comment from Matthew. I just threw up here about how are we not built for a comeback. You talked about that a little bit, but if you look at the last several goals that FC Cincinnati has scored, several of them have been on counters with Denke winning the ball at midfield, turning a guy, taking it himself, Evander taking a ball on a break, hitting it from 30 yards, scoring a goal. Like, a lot of these have been in transition moments, and it seemed like they were really hesitant, or maybe the transition moments were so few and far between last night that they didn't see the opportunities when they were there, or there was one that maybe it was Brenner that did play it across, or Evander maybe played it across to Brenner, and it was just came up short. And Zawadzki, I think, stepped in and took the ball. And so there was that one play. I thought that was the one you were talking about, but it must not have been if Brenner pulls it back. So there maybe was one opportunity there that maybe that turned into the one shot they credited Teenage Hadeb for. I don't know, in the first half. So anyway, it does seem like they produce in transition moments, but they don't want to take those opportunities when they're in front of them all the time. Nick, how did you feel about the first 35? Like, anything we can learn from the first 35? Let's start there.
I thought they did a good job, I think, countering the press, if that makes sense. I think you watch some of I think there are some shaky performances and shaky moments, but at the end of the day, it didn't seem too out of line from what we've seen from other FCC games where they've sort of been pressured early, or have had to survive, an onslaught early. Like, we knew Columbus was going to come out of the gates that strong. To your point and to Coach's point, there were some moments that I thought were there that were just maybe, timing was a second off. We talked about the near own goal for Columbus that would have made it 1-1 and changed that whole game. I thought that was the result of some really good pressure coming from FCC on the Columbus back line. Forgive me I can't remember the Columbus player who chipped it over the net, but that was the result of, I think, Brenner being right on his back and not giving him a second to, react. So I do think you saw FCC doing a good job of trying to survive that early storm for Columbus and putting pressure on the back line, trying to force them into some bad plays coming out of their back end. It's just a couple shaky moments. I know we're going to talk about the Alvis Powell goal. If you want me to go ahead and jump in, I think that was just, I know some people are talking about maybe the field conditions, like he slipped a little bit, but that was just a bad decision from Alvis Powell. He's being pressured from behind. He tried to make a move, make a play, instead of just do the safe play and pass it back to Celentano. That was a bad moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean the entire first 35 minutes were bad. I think that's kind of my main takeaway is I thought FCC, they didn't play great, but they didn't play horrible either. It's just a couple of key moments that you look at and it's like, okay, they're shaky.
Yeah, and in fact, I think those key moments come from something that FC Cincinnati was doing right. I think their press actually looked pretty good. That first goal came from them doing so good on the press that the ball's played out wide to Herrera, and Herrera has nothing to do but one touch the ball and just hit it forward. He just runs and just chops it forward over Powell's head, so much so that Ender Echenike just stops chasing Arston because he's like, oh yeah, that's right to Powell. Powell's got that easy. Right. But Powell lets the ball bounce. It skips off the turf and then he's facing his own goal and then he's afraid to turn it over and then he gets nudged in the back and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it was a bad moment and those goals happened, but it came off of good pressure and the Crew having nowhere to go with the ball but long. And Kubo's red card, same thing. It started with just a hopeful long ball from Zawadzki built off a really good press. And you can say both ways. You can say there's no way FC Cincinnati should be getting scored on off of these hopeful long balls. So that sucks. And you can also say, wow, Crew really did not generate any beautiful passages of play that give pundits anything to love. What Taylor Twellman was saying on the broadcast is, I love how Rossi bumps Powell in the back there. Like, oh, congratulations. What a great play. You bumped him in the back. Because it wasn't beautiful. It was really bad on FC Cincinnati, but also good that it wasn't Crew just slicing them apart with like quick 1-2 passes.
It did feel like, Crew had a lot of possession this time, moved the ball much better and faster, I think, than Cincinnati, but they were playing with an extra man. The other night we talked about the problems Diego Rossi created playing in that false nine and drawing Miles Robinson out. And it didn't seem like, at least to me, it didn't seem like that happened as much This time they made that adjustment and made Columbus play a little bit more direct and balls over the top. And so maybe we've solved that issue that we saw in the first game, and we'll have guys back. Like, field conditions aside, like, we talk about that. Both teams played on the same field, and it was Cincinnati players that were falling down, So I don't know that it was field conditions. It maybe Alvis Powell was wearing the wrong boots for the night. Maybe he should have had longer studs. Maybe he was just a little unsure of when to step to the ball. And when you get a little imbalanced that way and you have to put a little bit more weight on your outside foot, you tend to slip and fall. So I don't want to put too much into the field conditions. I just think there are a couple individuals. Cincinnati as a team didn't play great, but there are a couple individuals that didn't have their best games, right? I do want to throw this one up from Jay Yates. Lack of speed across the back line feels like a big issue. I don't know that that's the issue. Alvis Powell has been like one of the fastest players in Major League Soccer. Now, he's not as young as he used to be. He's still a fast player. We've got Miles Robinson with some speed, and Ender Echenike is one of the faster players in Major League Soccer, I think, too. So I don't think speed is the issue back there. So to Jay's point, the rest of that was like midfield and forwards seem to hesitate on attack because they need to cover a little too much on defense. Is that like, what is it then if these guys aren't going forward? It's not their speed. Is it we just got to stay back and we're afraid to go forward? Or is it what you were talking about earlier, is not recognize the moments to go forward?
I think you're go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, like, real quick, like, that's kind of the point of three center backs too, is where you're not having to rely that much on speed to begin with. I think for me, it's more the communication wasn't there, not necessarily the speed. When you have a back three, there's a lot of movement within that three. Somebody's got to slide up, you may have somebody go up, take forward, I think to me that just wasn't there. And I think that's maybe the end result of just having different people on the back line from game to game. And I don't know, Coach, I'll let you say what you saw on that, but I don't think it was speed was an issue at all.
Yeah, FC Cincinnati's lineup was way faster in match 2 than it was in match 1 when you take out Haglund and add in Powell, and and then you even go back further and guys like Lucas Engel is not a fast guy. Like there are a lot of other slower players that could be in there. I think that offensively on the road in a derby match in an environment like that, I think you have two key players in Ender Echenike and Sammy Guidi that are kids. They are children playing for the first time in a playoff, much less in a playoff, in a derby match, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they played like it. Both of them, like Ender did not play bad, but you could tell he was a little like on the ball. He was taking an extra touch. He was thinking things through. He was not running at Max Arfsten. He was stepping on the ball and pulling it back, right? Doing his best DeAndre Yedlin impersonation. Sammy Guidi a couple times went to bring the ball back down, and the crew person just separated him from the ball, just had a little bit more intensity. Like Guidi did not have that extra bit of urgency that you get in those derby playoff matches that come with experience of raising your level for that match, right? And when you have guys in key positions, and then Alvis Powell had a terrible game. He just did. Like even on the ball, he had so many bad like passes and turnovers straight out of bounds, up the line to nobody, that like you start to have big holes in your lineup. And a guy like Kevin Denke wasn't touching the ball, and Evander was dropping deep to try to help the team progress the ball because they were struggling, and Brenner was kind of floating in and out of space and not sure where to go. And it just kind of devolved from there. And I think that they would have settled in. I mean, maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think had that red card not happened, they would have settled in. And it's unfortunate that they were already down 1 goal by the time that red card happened. It's unfortunate that red card, if you go back and watch that and the first crew goal, they were so fluky. Again, this is not play. This was like hopeful long balls forward that took weird bounces and took weird ricochets. That the red card came from a long ball that Miles Robinson doesn't quite win. He pops it straight up in the air. And Kubo had run in behind Miles in case Miles missed it, which we like to see, right? but then Kubo didn't push out quick enough, and Sammy Guidi, instead of trying to like clear the ball, tries to bring it down, and Rossi just pokes the ball forward. And from there, it's total luck that Kubo was just starting to push up. He's got to try to turn and run. Herrera gets in behind him. And these things happen. I don't think this is indicative of some big problem. I do think FC Cincinnati is going to have a problem of what to do at left wing back, because do you play a Luca Orishano who gives you more naivete out there, but maybe some offensive firepower going forward? Do you play a Lucas Engel that all of a sudden slows you way down back there? I mean, I don't know. But I don't think that this match gives you any indication that the Crew are some offensive juggernaut. Just real quick, I want to give you guys a pop quiz, because there were two other goals we're probably not really going to talk about because they happened down a man. But do you know what the back line was when those two goals were scored?
You're talking about the third and fourth one, right?
Yeah, third and fourth goal. What was the back line?
It was definitely Gilberto Flores, because I counted mistakes for both of those goals on Gilberto Flores. Was it
Hadeb was in the middle.
The other, it was Hadebe
and
Lucas Engel.
Yeah. And then Luca Orishano and Ender Echenike.
That's right.
Think about that, and think about teenage Hadebe, and you've seen he's been a bit erratic. And think about flanking him with Engel, who is not a center back, who's played pretty well back there, but he's not a center back, and Flores, who has been very erratic, and then flank them by two wingers who are also children, right? I guess Luca Orishano, he's like 24 or something. But anyway, the point being, like, I don't want to make excuses, and I know I kind of am, but the point that I'm trying to make is that the sky is not falling. The FC Cincinnati has got to take a hard look at that film when they were even strength and ask themselves why they were not more decisive going forward, and ask why did they lose out on so many of those little 50-50 moments and stuff? Why did a player like Sammy Guidi not have that intensity? But also, I think you can say, I'm also glad Sammy Guidi didn't go in there and lunge into a studs up tackle, because some kids, that's the way they show their first time being in the playoffs, right? So
yeah. Or you, Kubo.
He's a kid too, right? Child.
Yeah, right. Yeah. On the red card, I said in our chat, like, I think Kubo is forced in a horrible position, right? He could have taken maybe a different angle, maybe could have gone around him, maybe you just let him shoot. I don't know. But I think he's a guy that's going to throw his body on the line to stop anybody from scoring on them. That's what I've always loved about Kubo. He was a guy that got a lot of cards when he played in that number 6 position years ago in that central midfield, because he's going to go into tackles and he's going to go in hard. And he was just put in a poor position there because of a fluky play. So I get that. Let's talk about the cards for a minute. We've got a yellow card on Miles Robinson. We got a yellow card on Evander late in the match, and then Kubo with a yellow early and then a straight red for that one. What is that? 4 cards on 3 Cincinnati players and none on Columbus, and the way the game went down that way, which feels a little lopsided and, biased, but, we don't need to get into that. I want to talk about Miles' yellow card, though, for a second, because to me, as I watched that, it was almost in the same place on the field, almost the same ball that was played when Latte Loth goes in hard with an elbow against Hagelin, breaks a couple ribs, no foul is called, and Miles and Diego Rossi bump into each other, and Rossi falls, holds his face, Miles gets a yellow. Deserved? Did he have a bad angle? What was that?
No, of course that was undeserved. I mean, and kudos to the announce crew for calling that out right away and being like, look, if you want to call that a foul, okay, sure. I don't necessarily maybe agree with it, but I can understand how you would call that a foul. To give it a yellow when it's literally just 2 guys, the center back trying to get position on a guy, the elbow didn't come up. Like, I mean, it's literally just, you see that same play hundreds of times in Major League Soccer.
This is what I was saying about Guido getting caught up in the drama of the moment. He did not hesitate at all. A referee that's not caught up in the drama of the moment, even if he blows the whistle for a foul, is talking to his 4th official there, his AR across the field. Did he put his elbow into him? Like, what did you see? And, telling the guys back up, as they're all screaming that he deserves a yellow and a red and all that, because he's talking to those guys. Guido, no, straight in with the yellow. He was close enough. He saw it all. And really the first Kubo card was the same. I think it was Herrera gets goal side of Kubo, and then you see, and it happened with the red too, but Kubo also makes a lot of contact with the red. So, I think that was deserved, but the landing gear's coming up before there's any contact. He gets goal side. He feels Kubo being right there. And so he just leaves his legs drag and falls forward. And of course there's going to be contact then, which, I guess you can say credit to, maybe that is Wilfred Nancy's brilliance that everybody's talking about. Maybe he coaches Rossi and Picard. How many times was Picard on the ground that even Guido was like, no, that's not a foul. Okay, well, give him a card then. Give him a card for diving, because these guys, every chance they get, are rolling around asking for cards. And I will be honest, when Lucho Acosta used to do that, I hated it. So this is not just a Columbus thing. I don't like when players do that. I think it's embarrassing. And if I was a captain on that team, I'd be grabbing those guys and I'd be like, say, get up, quit this. This is not what soccer is. But some teams, maybe it's a French coach thing. I don't know. Maybe some teams, this is the way they play. FC Cincinnati has to be smarter, because they have to know if you make contact with Rossi anywhere from the waist up, he's holding his face like he got an elbow to it. It's going to happen every time, and you just got to be smart.
Do we see, Jose's in the chat saying like there's nobody on FC Cincinnati's team that's going to be I'll change his word, an enforcer, to get in somebody's face when things like this happen, right? Miazga's the guy that always does that, always did that. Is there a chance just for that purpose that we see him get some minutes? And he's not going to play a whole game. He's just coming back from injury, even if he comes in. But is for that reason, is there a chance we see Miazga on the field this week?
Is he healthy?
Yeah, I don't think so. He wasn't even in the 18. I can't imagine. I mean, if he comes into the 18, he's going to be 10 minutes fit, maybe. And if you're putting him in at the end of the 10 minutes, at the last 10 minutes of the game, it better not be to be an enforcer to cause problems, because you got bigger issues then. So,
yeah. I mean,
how about pizza? Can you bring pizza to Wilfred Nancy?
Right. I do think that there is a real problem on this team in that regard. It's like, you ask me the question, what should FC Cincinnati have done once they were down two men, and to try to come back? And my answer as a coach is, you need to have players that are willing to muck the game up and make it dirty, try to even the field, make crew overreact. And I thought, but who is that guy? Miles is like all-American nice guy. He's not doing it. Ender's a child. Guidi's a child. Buka, again, he's like, has no emotion. He's like a robot out there, which I love. He's my favorite player. So, but like, we don't have a guy who's going to go out there and really get like the kind of trash talking and things that are going to get another team upset. That is Miazga, or who else was really good at that was Yerson Mosquera. It's like, you need a player like that in a game like this. And FC Cincinnati does not have one at the moment, which isn't always a problem, but in a game like this, it was.
But you know who tried to take that on, it looked like at times, and I've seen it this game and I've seen it in other games, is Evander late in the game. And you don't want your 10, you don't want your playmaker being the enforcer out there. Like, there were times that it just looked like he was sticking his leg out hoping somebody would trip over him, and he's kicking people in the ankles, and just because maybe he's getting frustrated, he's getting kicked in the ankle. And so and then he, gets knocked down, or who was it that gets knocked down, and he shoves a guy down, and that's how he ends up getting his yellow. You don't want to leave it up to your playmaker to be the enforcer. And unfortunately, he's had to be that guy in a couple games, mainly because he's been taken out so many times, knocked around with no fouls being called against the player that's taking him out, and he touches somebody and falls down. So I get it. He gets frustrated. But man, we've got to get somebody else in there besides Evander that's going to step up and get in somebody's face.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily just being an enforcer either, because as coach said, muck up the game. It's not necessarily if you're a hockey team going out and putting your fourth line up there just to throw hits every game, but it's actually just, I think, to me, more about forcing other teams into a situation where they have to react. I would have loved to see Evander just sprint as fast as he could in a straight line into two defenders, and hey, maybe the ball gets kicked out, maybe he gets, maybe they miss a tackle and he forces a free kick, maybe you kind of take a run at somebody like after a play, not like take a run, but like finish your run. If you bump, you bump. That's kind of more what I want to see. I think you kind of wanted to see more YOLO from FCC after that red card, especially in the second half once they sort of settled the formation a little bit. That to me what was missing. It seems like they focused on defense and were more kind of like, let's not concede again. Let's park the bus. They didn't really put themselves in a position where they could take chances to go forward and just try to force Columbus into making a dumb play. In Brian, I think it was you at the top of the show that mentioned how good FCC has been on the counter at times this season. That's kind of what your counter is for. When you're playing a man down, is survive, play a ball out, and now all of a sudden you're giving your offense a chance to not just make a play, but force Columbus into having to make a move, make a decision, try to go for a tackle, try to adjust so they're, maybe out of position a little bit. I just didn't see that. It's not necessarily mucking up the game, like start fights or anything like that. It's just forcing Columbus into situations like that.
Yeah, it's hard to counter when you take. It's hard to counter when you take an offensive player off at halftime to play defense to just not concede any additional goals. Like it is almost like,
by the way.
What's that?
Which I hated that, by the way.
Right. I think you're on the road. You have another game to fall back on. So go for it now if you can. Don't just play to say, let's try it at home. Let's give this game up. But I think to the other point about mucking up the game and what Miazga would do differently, I don't think there's 4 players standing on Roman Celentano's feet on corner kicks if Matt Miazga is in there. Like it's like Cincinnati were like, Roman, you okay back there? We're going to get the ball when it's played out here. We'll let those guys kind of push and shove you around. I didn't see anybody getting in their faces really hard and shoving guys out of Roman's way. And so that's a big change that I think would have been made had Miazga been on the field.
Yeah, and when I talk about mucking it up, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Nick, you called for the vibes to change. Well, me and you are vibing on this because I'm not talking about starting fights. I'm literally talking about the same things Nick was saying. Like, make the game messy. So, I'm telling Ender, look, we're down a man. Anytime you're 1v1, put the ball past them and run. And if they turn and try to bump you off the ball, go down like a ton of bricks and act like you were shot multiple times in the spine. Like, roll around, scream, do your best Diego Rossi impression. That's what I'm telling him. Muck it up. Make them be like, what do you know? He's diving. Make them start whining at the ref. Do things like finish your runs. Do things like when a guy gets in your face, don't push him and don't lower your head anything, but stand there and be like, yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That kind of stuff, make them so like Evander, that play where he goes and shoves Jason Russell around out of the play and gets his yellow card. What happens if he goes up there to make the game messy, but doesn't actually play the enforcer? What happens if he just runs up there and he's like saying stuff and Jason Russell Rowe pushes him and he goes over? Right. Those are the things. It's like that veteran.
Cincinnati still gets a card.
The poop housery, is what I'm talking about. But
Cincinnati gets a card for being mean to Jason Russell.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, we're past the halfway point of the show. We have to thank our sponsor, Beyond Exercise, who is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury free. They help some of our local MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. And Coach, I want to turn it over to you for a little bit of talking tactics. What can we learn from this game that we need to pay attention to moving forward?
Yeah, man, we already talked about so much of this, so I'll try to be a little bit brief. But FCC against Crew, they don't do this all the time, but they do a man-to-man pressure, so much so that you will see like Brenner, because he's following right center back Steven Moreira, dropping all the way back along the back 4 when FC is pressing. They are man-to-man. And the goal is for Crew to play that to their one open man, which is Patrick Schulte, the goalkeeper, and then force him to play long balls and eat that up. And that worked pretty well in this match. Even when that free man was like Kelly Zawadzki or whatever, it worked pretty well. The problem is when you do that, your back line has to be on the same page. So you don't have one defender keeping everybody on side being 5 yards deeper. And when there is a guy without pressure, like Zawadzki or like Schulte, as soon as he winds up to kick the ball ball, you need to turn your hips so you're sideways to the field, and you need to start to drop. And that is where they kind of had problems. You saw, if you watch Kubo's first yellow card, it's a perfect example because FCC's press is good. They force Schulte to play it long. And all that happens is, I think it's Herrera runs along the back line in front of Kubo, and then as Schulte is playing it, he just darts in behind, and you see Kubo trying to like leave him a step goal side because he wants to let him run offside, but Powell is also a couple steps too deep, so that's not going to happen. And if you freeze the play and look at it, Miles Robinson is sideways on. That's what it is when you turn your hip so you can drop, and Teenage Hadeb is sideways on, and they're both in the position like we're ready to truck it back. And they're the two experienced center backs. You know who's not? Powell. And you know who's not doing it right? Kubo. So it's like these inexperienced guys. So, you know, you can blame Pat Noonan for playing those guys. You can blame the depth because, you know, they were, you know, if Haglund was out there, I don't think Haglund is making that mistake that Powell made, staying a little too deep there. But the fact of the matter is it's like I said from the beginning, that press is good. And I hope they stick with that. And I hope they just do a little bit better job of cleaning up those long balls, force the crew to play long, but then actually like win the ball and shove it back down their throats.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about the Columbus press in this one, because we talked about the press a lot. That first hell is real at TQL Stadium where Cincy went up 2-0, Columbus came back with 4 straight. We talked about the press being an issue there. What are you seeing in terms of how FCC is handling that Columbus pressure? And would you do anything differently if Columbus rolls out that press in game 3?
Yeah, you have to resist the temptation to play the simple square ball to your player on the touchline. So what happens here is Miles Robinson is under a bit of pressure, and instead of trying to pivot and play back to Roman or sidestep and play up the seam to Buka, he plays the simple square ball to Powell, who's out on the touchline. And that is just, there's already a guy pressing Miles. As soon as he plays that ball, he just runs straight through to Powell, and then Columbus squeezes the field at that moment. And every time that happened, Powell was turning the ball over, and it's a tough spot to be in for Powell. Like you don't have a lot of places to go there. You have to resist that urge, and you have to hold the ball under that pressure and find that the little bit less obvious option. Or if you play the obvious option, because sometimes you have to not turn it over, that player has to be willing to play a one-touch pass in towards your target forward and hope your target forward can do something like that. Unfortunately, Powell really struggled with that. Hadebe, I think, is the worst passing center back FCC has, but he actually did okay in this match. He had a couple of wayward passes, but on his side, he did okay with that. But when you have one center back who's just having a poor game and the other center back is not a good passer to begin with, I think you're just already in the hole. You have to find Guidi or Buka there, or you have to change the way you build out against the press. You can't play that simple ball to the touchline.
To that, I mean, as you're talking about that, playing the ball to Buka or Guidi to play out of the press, it just brings up the fact that I didn't hear Buka's name a whole lot in this match. And we talked maybe pre-show, I don't know that we talked a whole lot yet on tonight's show about Evander's play that didn't seem like it was stellar this game or even the previous 1 or 2 matches. And so it seems like there's something in the middle there that is not clicking, at least this game. With Buka's normally on the ball a heck of a lot more, moving the ball forward. And again, press down a man. But even Taylor Twellman said, Buka's touched the ball 6 times in the first 30 minutes of the match. We just haven't called his name yet. What's going on? Was there something going on there that Buka's not finding himself in spaces, or was it just down a man, maybe the first 30 minutes aside, he just couldn't find the space?
Yeah, I think in the first 30 minutes, what I noticed is that as Evander dropped deeper or Brenner dropped deeper, Buka tried to press forward to provide that rotation. And the problem is they were never to be able to build out again to where, they got Buka on the ball. So I don't know if that was by design. I don't know if Buka was just trying to find space or what. But I think that what happened is Brenner and Evander dropping deeper is all well and good if they progress the ball, but they weren't doing it either. And most of the time they were receiving the ball with pressure on their back and playing 1 or 2 touch balls straight back to where it came from. So they weren't even switching the point of attack. You're not getting it from Miles to Evander, then out to Ender, or from Miles to Evander, even out to Hadeb. It's from Miles to Evander, right back to Miles. And that's a problem, right? And that goes to what we were talking about with Evander, saying he's not playing great. And it's not like he's making a ton of turnovers or a ton of terrible plays, but he just looks like he's not quite sure that he can beat a player with the ball. And I don't know that if he's playing a little injured. I don't know if he's unsure of where the guys are going to be around him because they're all kind of new to him, or what's going on. But that has to be goal number one this week for Pat Noonan if you want to win this game, is get Evander on the ball in dangerous spots and get him cooking.
Even 30 yards from goal, get Evander on the ball 30 yards from goal. He can cook from there. But, I don't totally buy I don't think you were leaning hard into it, but these are all new players around him because he seemed to click pretty well with Brenner almost immediately. He's played with Denke all season. He and Buka played together. So I don't know that it's just that. There's something about his play it reminds me of the way he started the season. Like I felt like he just didn't have a lot of energy. He wasn't going forward quick enough. And then he turned it on. It's like, oh, okay. He lets the game come to him, and the game just hasn't been coming to him. So he's looked a little sluggish and indecisive at times with the ball. And so, you hope that changes, and it has to change. It's win or go home at this point. I don't think Cincinnati can afford to play conservatively in this next match at TQL Stadium. I think they put the pedal down to the floor and try and score some goals against a Columbus team that they know they can beat, right? Speaking of that game, the schedule, I believe, was just released today. It's November 8th. We knew it was going to be November 8th, but we didn't know time. I believe it's at 6 o'clock at TQL Stadium. Miami's playing right after that, gets the primetime game, of course. Cincinnati goes into that game with some injuries to Miazga, to Smith. We haven't seen in a long time either. Haglund may or may not be back. We think that he has, he was on a minutes restriction maybe this last weekend, so he could be back. Luca's just getting back from his injuries. We've got Obi still working into some games, though we've seen him a couple times now, and Engel is just returning from injury. So we do have some guys that, I don't know if they're limping back into the game, but they've not played a full 90 yet, or even a full 60 yet. And so we'll see how that plays out, because we'll have to fill some gaps with Kubo out on that red card. And speaking of cards, we've got Evander on 2 yellows now. So 1 more yellow, he's suspended if Cincinnati happens to win and moves on to the next round of the tournament. We would play without Evander if he gets a 3rd yellow. Miles has 1, Buka has 1. So unless they get 2 yellows in this next match, they should be safe moving on. So there was a comment here earlier from Rupesh, and you kind of touched on it, Coach. I wanted to save it for now. Worried about the brilliance of Wilfred Nancy being the deciding factor in this game. So as we look ahead to this next game, we've got Wilfred Nancy having the game plan and seeming to be a guy that can do that. And you've got a guy in Pat Noonan that is gritty, loves to play at home, loves to gut out these 1-goal wins in front of a home crowd. Coaching style, we could go back and forth on this, I think, all season. Who do you lean towards in this match, coaching style alone, regardless of players and all of that? Nick?
I mean, if you're just going based on resume, I mean, Wilfred Nancy's got an MLS Cup. He has had Pat Noonan's number since he came to Columbus. I mean, that's going to play. I mean, if you're talking about this purely on coaching, you got to give him the edge just based on history. But, I think if you look at the team itself, Cincinnati is going to enter Saturday's game as the better team. Like that, there's no question about it. They have more depth. They have more proven scoring right now. They ended the season on a better note than Columbus did. I'll say it like this. If FCC loses this game, it's not due to a talent gap. I will say that. And then maybe you do look at, was Pat Noonan outcoached in this one?
I will say, I think that Wilfred Nancy's brilliance as a coach is less about tactics and more about that he gives his guys the freedom to go out and play and make mistakes and shake it off and make more mistakes. And the thing about a style like that is it works really well when you have the best players. the year that Columbus won MLS Cup, they had Cucho Hernandez, who was the best non-Messi player in MLS, and Messi only played half a season that season, right? They had some really talented players. Now he is at a talent disadvantage in a lot of games, which is why they had a pretty bad season by their standards. And so it's one thing. And I said this when he was like coach of the year candidate. I was like, I don't think his tactics are as brilliant as everybody says. It's literally like get players around the ball and combine. The reason why Columbus is hitting so many long balls that are just hopeful long balls now is because you watch the game, they're getting a ton of players around the ball and there's nowhere to go because their players aren't as good. And so they're just whacking it forward. Right now, none of that matters if FCC is so scared to make a mistake that they don't go forward and they don't put Columbus under any pressure and they let Columbus have the ball the whole time. So I'm still taking Wilfred Nancy in terms of just Nancy versus Noonan, because I think giving your players that freedom and that bravery is that important. But in a tactical game plan, I think Noonan can coach just as well as Nancy. It's a different tactic. It's lock it down or it's send everybody forward, right?
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here, but I do want to address the fact that a lot of fans are saying, if we don't win, if FC Cincinnati doesn't win this match, should we be looking at Pat Noonan as, his seat getting a little warm? You can look at resume, right? You can look at playoffs. You can look at, Cincinnati only winning games by 1 goal, right? Coach, as far as Pat Noonan's job is concerned, is there any credibility to the fact that he may be on the hot seat, win or lose this match? Well, lose this match.
Man, I honestly don't think so. And I get what people are saying. Like, it's frustrating to look at this amount of talent and think like you should just be rolling over teams. I'm not the biggest Noonan fan in terms of his style. I'm not. I like playing on the front foot more. I think he's too slow to make changes. I don't think he subs often enough or at the right times. But even with that, how could he be on the hot seat? Not only is his regular season record been stellar, but also his record in the playoffs is 5 wins, 4 losses, and 2 draws. And the playoffs are fluky, man. Things happen. You lose players in key spots. You have a red card go against you. You have the wrong guy show up in the wrong room with the wrong kind of pizza. Because you don't tell me if that is a Hawaiian pizza with pineapple and everything that the refs aren't like, yeah, Matt, come on and bring it. It had to have been like anchovies or something, right? Yeah. But the point is, what Wilfred Nancy, who won an MLS Cup, his record in the playoffs is 6 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Really not that much better. 1 more win, 1 less loss, right? And he won an MLS Cup. Playoffs are fluky. So you can't tell me that you can put together consistently year after year, excellent records, excellent seasons, but you lose a fluke here or there and you should be fired. Now, maybe if this goes on 8 or 10 more years, then talk to me.
Yeah. And if you look at it, Pat Noonan has played 1 more playoff game than Wilfred Nancy has as well. So 11 playoff games to 10. So all that aside, like, he's got a cup. I get it, but he hasn't played in as many playoff games and the record's pretty similar. Nick, are you on the same side as Coach here, or are you're calling for his head?
No, I'm 100% with Coach. And it's almost like, what are we even doing with this debate? Over the last 3 years, FCC best record in the MLS. They just finished the best 3-year record by a road team in MLS history, better like any 3-game or 3-year span. And think about how many great teams there have been in the MLS. Pat Noonan just led FCC to 3 straight top 3 finishes of the East. 1 year removed from 3 straight wooden spoons. He's done one of the league's best coaching jobs. And yes, he's has some flaws. I agree with Coach 100%. But are you really going to sit here and tell me there's a better option out there right now than Pat Noonan? He's also, for every flaw, he has done some amazing things too. I mean, he's pieced together some really good teams out of very thin talent pools, either based on talent or either based on injuries or, just guys not on the roster at the right time. He's led them through some rough stuff. He has, I think, adjusted his lineup at times to get through some tough stretches. I think you've seen some individual players grow under Pat Noonan. I just don't know. I mean, unless Pep Guardiola wants to come over to the MLS anytime soon. Like, how many people out there are actually going to do a better job with this team than Pat Noonan?
Yeah.
That's my take on it. I just think the discourse over it is.
No, I think you're right. I think you got to ask who better, right? Who would be better in that role? And so for me, you look at it from a fan perspective, right? And do you want a team that's consistently good, that you can go to the stadium, cheer on, and more often than not, they're going to win the game that you go to. You're going to go home a happy camper. There's going to play some playoff games that you probably won't even be able to attend. So you're going to sit at home and be frustrated that they're not winning a playoff match, but you've been able to attend all season long and see your team win over and over and over, right? I get the frustration as a fan that I want my team to win, but would you take an MLS Cup once over the next 3 years being miserable? Or would you rather go to a game that, again, your team has more of a chance to win than not more often, year after year after year? So that's the way I look at it. I'm from out of town. I'm not getting to many games, but man, the games I go to, I'm like, they're probably going to win this game. And I love seeing that. So, we've got a comment in the chat. Like, would you copy and paste these next 3 years? That if we had the same, would you take that? I think so. I think you take a team that's sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference, a tough top of the Eastern Conference year after year, knowing that you're going to get to see a lot of wins at TQL Stadium when you go to see them. So we can put that conversation aside. We do want to move on to our final thoughts here. I know there's going to be a lot more conversation about Pat Noonan, win or lose this next game. I want to move on to our final thoughts because we're getting late here, past the 10 o'clock hour. Coach, give us your final thought.
Yeah, for my final thought, I want to zoom way out and think about, regardless of what happens, and mostly I'm saying this for me because I don't want to be destroyed if FC Cincinnati lose on Saturday. But regardless of what happens, if I zoom out, honestly, this team is ahead of schedule. I honestly thought they would be finishing 5th or 6th in the East this year and probably losing in the first round of the playoffs because I was thinking Kevin Denke is going to take a year to settle. It's going to take a year for Evander to get on the same page with these guys. We didn't have a right wing back that I trusted at the time to go forward at all because it was DeAndre Yedlin. You know what I mean? And now we have Ender, who's a child, right? Matt Miazga, a year older. I wasn't sure about that third center back position. Was it going to be Hadeb? Was it going to be Hagelin? My point being, I could go through it all. FC Cincinnati is ahead of where I thought they would be. Now, it sucks that they played this well and they finished second. And now you're thinking, well, now they should definitely win in the first round. But if you go back and actually look and think about things like, you know who Nick Hagelin is? The backup right center back on this team. But he was hurt. So you know who played? Powell, who was the backup to the backup, and when that happens, you're not always going to put in good performances. And it doesn't mean they shouldn't win because they should. They still are at a talent advantage. Doesn't mean I don't want them to win, but it means regardless of the result, I think we can feel good about this club and where it is as a whole, as a on the course of history and where they're going, because that cut and paste thing is going to happen next year. They're going to be better than they were this year, and they're going to finish in a similar or better position because they're continuing to grow.
Yeah. Good. I mean, that's a good perspective to look at it that way. A young team ahead of schedule, especially with the new players they brought in all at once this season. So good shout there. Nick, final thoughts.
I'm piggybacking off Coach a little bit here, and I think it's just a good mindset to have to maybe quell some of this doom and gloom that's going on right now. At the end of the day, this is one game that we saw over the weekend. It was a bad one game, but at the end of the day, it's one game. And as Coach mentioned, there's a lot of flukiness happening. We had some injuries going into this game. We had people playing in weird spots. We had some uncharacteristic mistakes from a couple of people. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. I know that it's just kind of the nature of Cincinnati sports to expect the worst, but I do think that when you look at where FCC is right now, as Coach said, they're in a good spot. They are perennially one of the best teams in the MLS every year. And they're going to be even better next year, assuming a lot of these big pieces that they brought in over the summer or over the last offseason stay. There's a lot of positivity around this team, and I'm not closing the door on an MLS Cup run just because of one uncharacteristic game
against a bitter rival.
Exactly.
Right? Cross-state rival. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to keep that in perspective. It's one match. They played poorly, lost a man. One match. We've got one more to go. I want to throw this up before my final thought. Jay says, I just want to see this team come out of the locker room like rabid badgers. And I agree. And I think there's a way to do that, at least for one player on this team. And I think that's for Cincinnati fans to wear Portland jerseys anytime you think you may be in the same place as Evander. Like, we saw the way he played in Portland. He was a man possessed on that field in Portland. And I think we've got to light a fire under him somehow. Get your Portland jerseys, wear those around town, bring back some memories for that guy so he thinks he's playing in a rivalry game with his former team, and we'll see him come alive in this game. No, I'm not serious about that. Don't wear your Portland jerseys, but we do want to see FC Cincinnati come out like rabid badgers. And again, for the sake of perspective, I said it earlier, very rarely does a team play like Columbus did this last week. Again, fluky, whatever, 4 goals. Very rarely does a team put in that performance twice in a row. And Cincinnati has definitely not allowed performances like that twice in a row against them. So I'm confident going into this game. It still has to be played. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a battle. Cincinnati should come out on top, and we're looking forward to another round of Cincinnati Soccer Talk after a playoff win and continuing on to round 2. And we will see you there. Thanks for joining us.